Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
The month of November is coming in hot. There's still no snow in the near-term forecast, and just a few days ago, we broke a record for the hottest day ever in November. It was 83 degrees on Sunday. Temperatures for the next few days will be mostly in the upper 60s along the Front Range. That's still 10 degrees above the seasonal norm. I'm Bazi Kanani. Coming up, results from yesterday's election, including whether school lunches can be fully funded.
I like the idea of it just being available to all children equally.
Then, a Republican congressman requests emergency powers to keep a coal plant running that's scheduled to shut down.
We're talking about jobs. We're talking about livelihoods for hundreds of families.
Plus, it may cost you more this year to create that perfect holiday appetizer.
We price our cheese by the pound, so that cheese is going to be like $45 a pound.
It's Wednesday, November 5th. Here's the news in Colorado today. Okay, first, let's get to last night's election results.
Keep kids fed! Keep kids fed!
There were two statewide ballot questions this year, both related to Colorado's universal student meal program called Healthy School Meals for All. And preliminary results show both measures passing by comfortable margins, meaning that voters like Jacqueline Beltran and Cassie Chisholm want the program to be fully funded.
I think for me, the most important job as an adult is to take care of the society that's coming up behind me. I think eventually they'll be the ones taking care of us.
Yeah, I mean, we are what we eat. So they've got to eat well in order to have the ability to sit down calm in a chair with a collected mind and actually be able to learn anything at all.
Voters originally approved the program in 2022. It provides public school students with free breakfast and lunch. But it's costing more than anticipated because more students are eating the free meals and food prices are higher. And that's why it was back on the ballot. CPR's Jenny Brundin was at a watch party with supporters in Denver last night. Jenny, Colorado voters agreed to a tax increase for this, but it will not raise taxes for everyone.
Right. They agreed to raise a tax on wealthier Coloradans, technically by further limiting deductions those taxpayers can take. These are filers with household incomes of $300,000 or more. These same taxpayers have been funding this program already, but now with the extra $95 million Proposition MM brings in, two other parts of Healthy School Meals for All that voters approved, but that never got off the ground, can go into effect. And those are a raise for cafeteria workers and an initiative to buy food from local farmers and ranchers.
This measure also included money for SNAP, the federal food assistance program for people with low incomes.
That's correct. Any excess money collected after the school meal program is fully funded can now go toward covering the state's cost on SNAP benefits, and it's unknown how much that'll amount to. SNAP has really been in the news lately because the government shutdown means recipients aren't getting food aid right now. But Colorado state lawmakers had added this to the ballot measure even before the shutdown. They were already thinking about how to shoulder more of the cost of these benefits after congressional Republicans cut a lot of federal funding for SNAP.
Voters also agreed yesterday that the state could keep excess tax revenue for school meals.
Yeah, this was Prop LL, and this is wonky Taxpayers' Bill of Rights logistics. Colorado's constitutional amendment, called TABOR, requires the state to ask for voter approval to keep any excess tax revenue. So the tax for healthy school meals for all brought in more than the state had originally told voters. So the passage of LL means that voters have agreed for the state to keep that excess tax revenue, about $12 million, rather than refunding it.
Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Now, let's turn to Colorado's capital city, Denver, and the bond package totaling nearly $1 billion. The city asked voters to take on long-term debt for transportation and infrastructure projects, also improvements to parks, and millions of dollars toward things like libraries, cultural institutions, and the animal shelter. Let's go to Denverite's Kyle Harris to hear how voters, in the end, felt about the vibrant bond.
Mayor Mike Johnston's $950 million debt package was leading in the polls last night. Denver has a long history of approving nearly all bond measures, so this isn't a huge surprise, but it is a change for the mayor, whose last attempt to ask voters for hundreds of millions of dollars failed. Johnston declared victory at about 8:30 last night as the results came into focus.
In the most difficult moments, we believe our neighbors are the ones who stand up and say, yes, I do want to show up to make sure that I invest in the future my kids and my grandkids deserve. And tonight, in overwhelming numbers, Denver did that.
The 5 items on the ballot will pay for transportation, parks, libraries, healthcare facilities, rec centers, housing, and much more. And it's a major coup for the mayor. He needed the money to cement his legacy with the massive Park Hill Park, an American Indian cultural embassy, and a new training facility for law enforcement and firefighters.
Thanks, Kyle. And you may have heard about some of the other interesting local ballot measures around the state. So let's go now to a lightning round of results for those. In Littleton, voters considered a question about growth and housing and whether they wanted to keep certain neighborhoods zoned for single-family homes only. Early results show that Measure 3A is likely to pass. In Fort Collins, it appears most voters decided that an old CSU stadium property should be turned into a multi-use development rather than strictly a natural area. Now, to Boulder County, voters there last night were poised to approve a tax that would fund mental health and addiction treatment services. And on the Western Slope, early returns show that voters are ready to create the state's first special taxing district for childcare. This is a 0.25 sales tax in Garfield, Pitkin, and part of Eagle County to provide daycare tuition support for families, raise wages for childcare workers, and offer grants for improvements or expansions to childcare facilities. Still craving more election results? You can find some links to more of our coverage in the show notes. A coal-fired power plant in Pueblo is supposed to close at the end of the year. But maybe not. The Trump administration could soon delay that plan. Republican Congressman Jeff Hurd is asking the Department of Energy to use an emergency authority to keep the plant open.
I think we're facing a serious electric reliability crisis in Colorado, and Comanche provides several hundred megawatts of 24/7 baseload power. And this is power that you can count on when the sun is not shining and the wind's not blowing.
Congressman Hurd wants the plant to stay open indefinitely. CPR climate reporter Ishan Thakur spoke with him. Ishan, before we hear more of that conversation, can you tell us first about Comanche 2, the plant? Why was it closing down?
Yeah, between 2018 and 2022, Colorado's Public Utility Commission, or PUC, approved a plan from Xcel that would phase out all 3 coal-fired power plants in Pueblo. Together, those are known as the Comanche Generating Station. And at the time, Xcel said it wanted to invest more in cleaner energy and battery storage projects and proposed a schedule for closing the entire station. The CEO said that clean energy could be cheaper than coal, and, now that's definitely the case, especially for wind and solar projects. Comanche 1 went offline in 2022. Comanche 3 is scheduled to keep running until 2031. And Comanche 2, as you mentioned, is supposed to shut down at the end of this year.
So the plan to shut down Comanche 2 had been in the works for some time. Why then is Congressman Hurd speaking up just now, just weeks before it's scheduled to close?
He was pretty quick to point out that energy demand in Colorado has increased a lot faster than expected. And a big reason for that is because of new AI data centers that are requiring a huge amount of energy to feed, more energy than DIA. And Hurd's also concerned about the economic fallout in his district, which includes Pueblo.
We're talking about jobs. We're talking about livelihoods for hundreds of families, including those that not just work at the power plant, that rely on the power plant for operation.
Specifically, he's worried about how the state and Xcel Energy are managing this plan to replace Comanche.
What is that plan?
So Xcel is supposed to provide payments to Pueblo to make up for the loss of tax revenue from Comanche because it's the county's largest taxpayer, and that funds roads and schools and all these other things. Hurd thinks that state regulators at the PUC have basically ignored what Pueblo wants for its future, and that could be keeping the lights on at Comanche or even building a nuclear plant to replace it.
What specifically is Congressman Hurd asking the Trump administration to now do?
Hurd sent a letter to U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright last week, and in it, he asked Wright to keep the existing Comanche generating station open until Xcel is absolutely certain it's got enough power from other sources to replace it. Hurd told me that the plants should shut down only when it makes sense for grid reliability. And when you think about how long it takes to build new power plants, especially a nuclear plant, that's probably years and years away.
It was Colorado's state government that approved Xcel's plan to close the Comanche plants. Does the Trump administration have the authority to override both the state and the wishes of Xcel, a private company?
It does, but those powers only apply in certain emergency circumstances. So we actually saw this play out in Michigan in May. Wright used emergency powers to keep the J.H. Campbell power plant open just as it was about to close. He said that basically losing that coal-fired plant would lead to blackouts and an energy shortage. But the utility that operates the plant said it spent more than $600,000 per day to keep it open.
When otherwise it would have been closed.
Exactly, yeah. So that's expenses that they would not have incurred, and that money is now being paid for by customers. So the Sierra Club challenged the Michigan order in federal court, and we could likely see a similar fight play out here between environmental groups and the federal government. I think it's important to say, though, that the Colorado Energy Office, which is, a branch of the state government, hasn't said that Colorado is in such a dire energy crisis that would require Comanche 2 to stay open. But Xcel said it would comply with any orders issued by the federal government.
CPR's Ishan Thakur. Thank you.
Thank you.
The holidays are just weeks away, and if you have plans to help entertain, maybe you're in charge of putting together the charcuterie board, it may cost you more this year. Tariffs are hitting fine foods like cheese.
We've had to do more price increases this year than we've probably done in the whole time we've owned the shop.
John Marsh has owned St. Killian's Cheese Shop, a specialty European import store, for 14 years.
Fair to say, just about everything is a little bit more expensive this holiday season than last.
Oh, yeah, across the board.
CPR business reporter Sarah Mulholland went behind the scenes with him to find out how tariffs are filtering down to people who buy imported foods. The most popular item at his store in North Denver is Hollerhocker, a dense, nutty cheese from Switzerland.
We bought up as much as we could of that cheese pre-tariff so we could wait on raising our prices.
But President Trump implemented a 39% tariff on products from that country in August, and Marsh's stockpile is nearly empty. He says he's about to raise the price of it.
We price our cheese by the pound, so that cheese is going to be like $45 a pound.
That seems like a lot, but Marsh says when he sets prices, he is considering the fact that people are already dealing with an uncertain economy.
Our sales are slightly above last year in dollars, but our profitability is significantly down because there's a limit to what we can do in raising prices.
Swiss cheeses will see the most dramatic spikes. Others from France and Italy, like Brie and Parmesan, are also subject to tariffs.
15% is no small markup.
And it's not just cheese prices on the rise. Imports like pasta, olive oil, cookies, and spices are subject to the higher tariffs as well.
There's not much in here that hasn't, in the last year, hasn't had to have at least some change in price.
If the tariffs stay in place, Marsh says some cheeses could cease to exist in the U.S. market.
It's just like throwing a big monkey wrench into the whole system.
And Marsh worries overseas producers could decide to forego U.S. sales altogether because it's not worth the hassle.
People think of just that straight effect of like, it's this much more cost. But the disruption to just the whole system is a much bigger, it's as big of an impact as just the costs.
So, if you can afford fine imported foods this holiday, you might savor them just a little bit more. Additional reporting for today's show came from Denverite's Paolo Shalsita and CPR's Stephanie Wolf and Sam Brash. Colorado Today is made possible by our listeners. You can support fact-based local news and make a donation at the link in the show notes. I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.